Okay, so I have some steel rod. This is just a mild steel rod. It's fairly polished, and I'm going to use this for the replacement, if you want to call them rivets. So I'm going to cut this off, cut this to length, 3 sections. You have to be fairly precise with this because you don't want to go too long. You need to account for the amount that you're going to rivet over. Okay, next step, let's just use the offcut. Check the diameter, which is equal to 5/16 of an inch. I drill bit 5/16 of an inch, and just know that your drill bits aren't necessarily the exact diameter that they say they are. So let's just take a look, see if we can get a measurement. 309. That's actually good. It works to our benefit. When we insert this, it's going to be extremely tight fit. We want the flaring, when we peen over the mild steel, we want that to happen only at the surfaces on each side of the handle. You don't want anything to mushroom out in the middle, and it can do that if your hole is too sloppy. So this is actually a really good thing for us because we're going to be able to use a drill bit and get a tight fit. Won't move around too much on us, and hopefully that'll work out well. Okay, so I have a support block. You can see that previous owners of this drill press did not bother with that. You really want to try and save your drill press if possible. If you drill all the way through here, this front end is just going to fall right off. So at some point we'll probably end up fixing this up as well. So grab a block. You're going to take a spinning object, try and drill through this handle. There is a steel section through here as well, so that can catch pretty easily. So I've got 2 layers of tape on here as a precaution, and I'm going to wrap it as well in this towel, just to make sure that if it does tend to spin on me, it's not going to cut through anything. Again, another reason why you really don't want to sharpen things too sharp until the very end of the project. Okay, so I've got that little escutcheon removed, and you can see there's a tiny little steel pin left in there, so I'll be able to remove that just by pounding that out. I need something very small to get that out, like a nail, for example. That would work. Little spring pin to get it started. You see there, and unfortunately the crack that was already there is opened up a bit. I'm going to have to use some wood glue and clamp that back together. So after that's done, you should be able to take a pair of vice grips and work it out. Rest the way. Okay, so I'll glue this, and then I'll do the exact same operation to this last part. When you glue it, try and get the glue in as far as you can, so you may need to spread this open a little bit. So I was hesitant to do this, but because it's an exotic wood, at least I believe it is, sometimes they have a lot of oils in them, and wood glue doesn't necessarily bond that well to it. So I had some PL Premium handy, construction adhesive, opened up the crack, inserted the PL Premium. I'll wait till it cures, and it'll expand right into the joint. As well, the benefits of polyurethane. It pretty much bonds to anything. And then I'll sand it off. The color is all the way through here. Try not to disturb this too much, but I'm going to have to clean this up a bit. So the construction adhesive has cured. I don't know if you can tell the difference, but it has foamed up a little bit, which is one of the properties of this polyurethane construction adhesive. So it does fill any voids and make sure that you have good bonding. So I'm going to clean off the surface, and then we'll get ready and probably start off with actually countersinking these holes a little bit. I have to drill out this last hole that I was not going to drill out before the glue cured, just to make sure that we didn't actually drill and then the crack continued to form. And we would get an irregular shaped hole as well. I'm going to switch over to a larger diameter drill bit and do just the smallest countersink. And that's going to be in order to let when we peen over that small metal pin, we'll have somewhere for the pin to actually go. It's essentially that mushrooming effect, so you metal on metal contact. And this is going to be mild steel, so it's going to deform fairly easily. And we want it to actually just sit in a small void that will keep these components in contact with the steel and tight sandwiched together. You don't want to overdo this. You can easily crack these components or these parts because it will act like a wedge and of course split this piece. It's fairly thin. Just the slightest chamfer on those edges will allow that metal to sit and be able to be filed down just flush, but still hold this component to the steel tang. So I did the same process here, drilled out these holes. I just used this guy as a template to make sure the holes align fine. And now we're going to insert some pins. So I have a little bit different length of pins. I'm going to say it's intentional, but partially it's unintentional, just because it was difficult to cut to length. So with this tang, it tapers. It's actually much thinner at this end. So I'll use the shorter pin at that end. And because the holes are very tight tolerance, you're going to have to actually insert them with a hammer. One thing I did do, just to make it a little easier on myself, is I slightly chamfered the edges here of these pins, just so that it would sit properly and guide itself in. Not sure if you can tell, but it is flaring out at the top as expected. There we are. Just barely, so more work to be done there. Here's a close-up view of that mushrooming, peening, that detail I was referring to. So you see it's not actually very even, so I need to work on my technique. There we go. But that's essentially what you're looking for. So just a very, very small amount that'll set into that small bevel that we put onto like a countersink that we put into the handle. And that's all that you need. I actually kind of like this finish. If I can get it to fit just about right, I can leave that finish on there. It'll look really good. Okay, so I've done them all on the first side, and the one that was a little bit long, like I said, it's going to need to be refined a little bit more afterward with the file. But these other two look pretty good in length, so I'll finish off on the other side. Okay, a bit more work to do. Okay, that's nicely sandwiched on there. Very good. So I will take a little bit off with the file, and then I'll go over it again with the peen to give that effect that I really like, the hammered look. But I would like it to be a little bit more flush to the surface of the material. You don't really want to be feeling these sticking out from that surface, so we'll try and bring them in a little bit more. And it'll also look a little bit nicer, a little bit more refined. Okay, so a little bit more, a little sanding on the handle. We'll put a coat of linseed oil on that. It'll finish it right up. So I did a very light sanding with a fine grit sandpaper. And now I'm going to polish it up with some steel wool. The handle had quite a few coats of this kind of gunk. Who knows what that is? And steel wool helped to get rid of that. The sandpaper was just getting clogged up. So here's some linseed oil. Just remember this little detail, very important. Your rags can actually catch fire, so make sure when you're done, you dispose of them carefully as per the instructions on the back. I'll be putting mine into a bucket of water when I'm done. So what I like to do with linseed oil is I like to apply it and then buff it in. Linseed oil will actually soak into the fibers of the wood and help to protect it over time. And it will harden up, at least to some extent. It is a traditional oil that was used, made from flaxseed. And this is boiled linseed oil, so it cures very fast in comparison to just raw linseed oil. There you have it. So the crack that we fixed is it's less visible than it was before. It looks a little bit nicer than it did before, but it is still visible. I'm okay with that. Everything else looks pretty much like it did before. So part of the reason that I did rivets like this is because I don't have the technique involved in reproducing the exact rivet that they used before. So this is a technique that I've used that's very common. So replacing all the rivets makes it looks like it was original. It is a traditional technique to do this kind of a peening and flare out the tops to hold something tight. And here's the example, or here's the result. This is tight all the way along. They're very solid, not moving. I didn't glue it. I didn't put epoxy in like some people like to do. It's just on there with wedge action. All right, so here is the final product, completely restored. We have sharpened the blade, both sides. So now we can cut paper, preferably food, but you can cut paper if you like to. We've made a protective leather sheath, hand stitched, hand everything, and engraved with a similar logo, including the imperfection that you can see on the blade as well. And then we've done the handle as well. So this looks like pretty close to what it would have looked like originally. This is a good solid connection, should last a really, really long time. And with this protection, the blade is going to stay sharp. And that's it. It was a fun project. Join me on the next project. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe, and comment. Thanks a lot for watching.